Hello everybody, my name is Patrick Dennis with Synaptic Advisory Partners, and what we're going to do today is that we're going to take a couple of minutes and show a demonstration or a bit of a how-to video as to what are the things that we can do to help get started with the Youreka Template Builder. So for those of you that don't know or that are kind of just understanding what Youreka is all about, we're a Salesforce-Native Forms application that lives as a part of your Salesforce org, and we facilitate any sort of data collection, any forms, assessments, inspections, checklists, any documents like that where we're collecting information from individuals. Youreka helps to facilitate that. And a big part of the demo that we're going to go through today is how we can use the template builder to design the forms that we need our users to be filling out. So we're going to take a couple of minutes and go through all the different pieces that are going to help you get started with this. So here's a couple of things that you're going to see today. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to open up an example Salesforce org and that we've just installed Youreka for. And I want to show you what it looks like to start building templates. I'm going to go through just the basic building blocks of getting started, like talking about the different question types that Youreka can support, how to set up some basic conditional display logic, which is a very foundational feature that a lot of our customers like to utilize to allow us to kind of guide users through a form as they fill it out. We're going to show you how to display some instructions, some images, and any other specific content that you might want to have in there to support the user as they're filling out a form. And then we're going to close up by just saying, by explaining how we can use these forms to link to certain Salesforce records. So Youreka on its own is very powerful by allowing us to fill out forms and answer questions, but it's even more powerful when you plug it into the existing objects and the existing records that you have in your Salesforce environment. That's when Youreka's forms can actually update that information. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then finally, we're going to publish the template that we make so that we can show it to our users, whether that be on the mobile device or right on the desktop UI. So the first thing we're going to do is just talk about Youreka's question types. And what I want to do there, let's see if we can move over to my Salesforce org. There we go. So when you install Youreka into your Salesforce environment, what you'd notice is that you actually receive an example or you receive a Lightning application as part of the managed package. And so when you open up Youreka for the very first time, you actually see a lot of different pieces of information at the top. All these tabs represent some different feature that Youreka has to offer. What I'm doing here for the purposes of simplicity is I've actually created a different Lightning app that just shows you some very, very basic components to getting started with the template builder. So the first thing that we can do is when we want to build our very first form template, we can go to our Form Templates tab inside of Salesforce. And as you can see here, there's just a couple of examples that I've already built, but we're going to make a new one. So we can click on New up here in the top right-hand corner. And when we do, we're going to navigate over to a screen that basically represents the canvas where we can start dragging and dropping fields. So I'm just going to call this Getting Started with the Template Builder. And we're going to be a little bit goofy with this one. We're not going to talk about any specific use cases. You can use your imagination on how these features can translate over into the form that you want to build for your business. So we'll just use some very basic question types here. But the first thing I want to draw your attention to is you can see this little green box right here that's bouncing. This is the very first step. It's just simply dragging on a section. We'll call this General Information. And again, this is the canvas that really just allows us to drag questions onto this editor and then have those questions kind of define what our users need to be filling out. So the first part of this, like I said, is we're going to talk about the different question types that you're offered. And so by selecting this little drop-down menu here, we can select any one of these question types, which will represent kind of a different data point that your users are going to be filling in. So as you can see, we can do free text, we can do radio buttons, we offer quite a few. So for this example, I'm just going to keep it at text. And we'll just call this question text question. And we'll go ahead and be done. There's some other options here in terms of editing the color or indenting the question, etc. But I'm just going to keep it simple for now, and we'll have that question be on the be our first question on the form. The second one we'll really quickly drag on here, and we'll call this a radio button list, and we'll call this please rate Youreka. So as you'll notice, because we picked radio button list, we now have some options as to how we can show these different radio buttons. And actually, as a part of the latest feature, or the latest release that that came out with Youreka, we actually have the ability to edit these different buttons and the different icons that are represented. So I might say for this first option, I want to say that we love it. And we'll actually say that this is a happy face. And then maybe I want a different radio button value, and we'll call this, we'll just say that I like it. How about that? All right, so now we've got a radio button here. And then the last one is we'll just say a number value. So we'll grab one of our last question types here is just called a number, and we'll just say, how many questions are we going to add here? And we can edit the amount of integers that are going to be displayed. We can set minimum and maximum values to help validate the different information that's being input. But in any case, we'll just add this here, and then we'll move on. So that's just some of the basic ways that we can add different question types to the form that we're building. Obviously, as you think about your use case, you can expand upon which ones you might end up using. So let's go back over here. So that was the Youreka question types. And now the next piece to this that I want to talk about is how to actually create conditional display logic. So as we think about our form that we're putting together here, maybe I want some other questions beneath this to only be shown when I answer like it or love it to some of these first questions. So I'm going to add another section here to demonstrate this. So we're just going to show, it's going to be called conditional display logic. And that's what this section is going to be all about, is showcasing how that works. So for the first question here, I might say, whenever somebody says to please rate Youreka, whenever they say that they love it, maybe I want to ask why they love it. This is common in like a customer satisfaction questionnaire, right? So I'm going to drag another question down here, and I'm just going to say, why do you enjoy Youreka? And I might just want to keep it at free text so somebody can type this information in and give me some qualitative insight as to why they're enjoying the product, if you will. And then actually I'm going to make this kind of a light blue color too, just to kind of show that we can make questions different colors. So I saved this question, but the important thing to notice here is that I'm actually going to use this second tab here called Conditional Display Logic. And as you'll notice, by default, it's set up so that it's always visible. So anytime anyone is filling out this form, that question is going to be made available. But here I can switch it over to conditional visibility. And now I can indicate when this question will be shown under certain conditions. So for the first section, we've got the question, please rate Youreka. And I only want to show it when we meet the following criteria. So when someone says that they love it, right? So I'm going to click Save there. And now what ends up happening is when we actually preview the way that this form behaves, we can see that the first part of the form, we just have our first three questions. And then the second that someone says that they love it, we open up that fourth question there. So this is a very simple example of how this works. But as you can imagine, it gets very, very powerful very quickly, especially if you have a form that is dozens or hundreds of questions long. We can support many, many different levels of complexity when it comes to generating conditional display logic for these questions. So I'm going to add one more here just really quick. What could we be doing better? And we'll also leave that a text question. I'm going to make this one brown because brown's everybody's favorite color. And then we're also just going to say display logic here is going to be the other option. So maybe I just like it. If we wanted to add some complexity, again, this kind of speaks to the different ways that you can develop the conditions here. We might also want to say only either when someone rates Youreka to say that they like it, or if the answer to this numerical question is greater than 5, for example. We can make it so that when we add a little bit of logic here, so we'll say 1 or 2, it'll evaluate either of those options, and if one of them is satisfied, then we'll show this other question here. All right, so we're going to quickly save the form just as we're working through it, but that's how we're able to demonstrate certain questions in certain situations. So if we say, I love it, then we show that question. If we say, I like it, then we show the other question. And the same is true for that numerical value, the one or the other. So that's basically allowing us to show or hide questions based on answers to previous questions. So that's a little bit of Youreka's conditional display logic. The next thing that I wanted to show you was how we can link Salesforce records to a specific form in the system. But the important thing that I would stress is that when we talk about how Youreka can satisfy this need, we think about linking records in the system to forms in two different ways. So the first way is what we call a field link. And so this is when we're talking about linking questions to fields on Salesforce records. And I'll show you an example of how this works in a moment. But what's important to notice is that this is different than the second feature, which I'll also show you, which is called a linked section. And that's when we're updating and managing data in related lists. So it's two different ways of editing records in Salesforce. I'm going to show you both. So let's start with the field link here first. The first thing that you must understand is that when you install Youreka into your Salesforce org, what happens is we bring many objects into your org as a part of that managed package. And so, for example, if I want Youreka's forms, which is one of those objects that comes with our package, if I want a form to update information on an account, for example, the way that we can accomplish that is by creating a lookup field from the form object and have it look up to the account object. We actually already do this for you when you install the package. We do it for many of your standard objects so that you can get off the ground and running faster. But if you have a custom object as opposed to an account that you want to link a form to, it's important that you create a lookup relationship from your form object up to that custom account, for example. This is how we can make field links possible. So let's see this in action. So the next thing I'm going to do here is we will use field links inside of our form. So we'll call this section using field links. All right, great. So in this case, I actually want my form to talk to the account object. So I'm going to drag another question on here to this other section. And this question is going to be called account name. And here we can actually pick from the question type, but the question type that we want to use in this case is called the field link right here. And as you'll notice, we're actually kind of showing the next level of instructions here. We want to try to find that lookup field on the form object to a different object. So we're going to go look for those different fields. And so like I said before, as you install Youreka into your environment, we can show you, like, we're already creating these different 5 lookup fields to your standard objects in the system. If you had a different lookup that you needed, like if you wanted a form to update the order object, for example, you would create a lookup from the form object to the order object, and then that would be made available for you here too. But in this case, I'm just going to use the account, so we'll click on the account lookup, and then we're also going to indicate what field on the account we want to link to. So I'm just going to call this the account name. But as you'll notice, the second that we selected that object, all of the fields on the account object itself are now made available to us. So I'm just going to say that the account name is the one that we want here. And we'll click Save. We're going to do it once more for the website of the specific account. So we'll call this account website. And we'll do the exact same process. Grab a field link here. We'll grab the account object, and then we'll grab the account website. There we go. And we'll click Save, and we're done. So now what we're able to do is, as we save this form, when we actually go to fill it out, which I'll show you here in a moment, we can actually decide what account we want to populate this form, and then we can update the account, these fields on the account, when we fill out the form. So it's a really powerful feature. We can go to many different objects at once. So a single form can update a lot of different data in the system all at one time. So that's field links. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here, and I want to talk about the other example where I said linked sections. This is where we're able to update related lists. So if you can think about the most simple example would be we're updating the account inside of Salesforce, but maybe I also want to update many different contacts for that account on a single form. That's what a linked section would be for. So as we think about our initial relationship where the form record is looking up to the account, if I want to update contacts inside of this form, I need to allow for a link section to do that. And the way that that works is you must create a lookup from your contact object up to the form object. So it's a little bit different than the field link, the direction of the relationship. So as you kind of wrap your head around it and as you think about the objects that you want to be able to update from the form, you got to kind of think about the different relationship that you need, the different directions of the relationship that you need for these things to go. Fortunately enough, we also create a field on the contact record or on the contact object that looks up to the form so that you can, again, get started right out of the gate to create link sections in your forms. But if you have a custom object that you want as part of a link section where you want these related lists to be updated, you're going to want to make that relationship happen between that custom object and the form object. So let's go back over to our form here, and we'll actually add another section. Ooh, excuse me, we're not adding a regular section, we're adding a linked section. So let's drag this to the canvas here. And now we got a couple of prompts that we need to go through. So I'm going to call this one contacts for the account. And here we can actually say, what is the object that this section is going to be focused on? So we said that this is a contact. This drop down right here is informed exactly based on the relationship that I showed you in the PowerPoint presentation. It's going to show you all the objects that have a lookup to the form object in Salesforce. And so I have a contact here, and the official field that we added is called the Youreka form field. So you can reference that field name on that object that you're looking up to. Okay, so this is called contacts for the account. So at this point, we're able to actually add many different contacts, and we'll build this out here in a moment. But the other field that's important for you to understand, or the other feature that's important for you to understand, is what we call shared link sections. And this is actually what's going to pre-populate the form, if that's what you want, with the existing contacts from this particular account. So I'm going to check this to be true, and I'm actually going to pick which account I want the contacts to pre-populate from. In this case, I want it to be the account that we're updating the account name and the account website for. So we can reference the other lookup that the form object is looking to for this form, and that's going to tell us which contacts are going to be displayed here when we open up the form. So there's some ways to play around with this, and you should certainly do it in your own org to figure out what works for you. But again, in this case, we are pre-populating the form with contact records from this specific account. So without belaboring this, we're going to go ahead and build out this section right here. I'm going to make it 2 columns. And this is where we can say all the different questions for those contacts. And so as you'll notice, as I drag a question onto the canvas, we're automatically field linking over to the contact. And I'm just going to call this first name. And then we'll just pick the first name field for this object. And we'll click Save. We're also going to pick the last name. And so as we do that, basically we'll click Save, and then we'll add 2 more questions to the canvas here too. We're going to add phone number, and then we're also going to add email address. Grab the business phone, and then we'll grab the email address too. And again, what we're doing here is we are going to be pre-populating this form with all the different contacts along with these 4 fields. So any other fields that we want to update from the form we could add here. But I'm just going to quickly indicate which ones I want to show, and then we're going to move on. So that's an example of how we can use a form to update records inside of Salesforce, both using field links, which represent a specific record inside of the system, as well as using a linked section, which represents a related list or many different records all at once. The last item I'm going to show you is how we can build out sections inside of Youreka that show us different pieces of content or images or instructions. So I'm actually going to add one more section here, and we're going to call this displaying content inside of forms. And the reason why this is so important is when we talk to a lot of different customers, they ask us, how can Youreka help support the talk tracks that my users are going through. So if they're filling out a form while they're talking to a customer, or they're filling out a form during an inspection, they don't want to just show questions, but they want to show content. And so that's what I'm going to show you here. So rather than dragging questions onto the canvas, what I'm going to do is actually drag text, image, and space. So this is a different feature that we're going to be able to drag here. And this is just allowing us to be able to indicate whether we want to show free text or images or just have a blank space. So here I'm going to just say, here's your free text. And we can edit the text here, so we'll just indicate that we want it to be centered, etc. And then the other item here is that maybe we want to add an image. A lot of times we have customers adding literally tiny little images with instructions or with images of maybe how things are supposed to look, so that when their users are using the form and they're inspecting something, there's an image of the ideal state so they can compare what they're seeing in real life to what is in this image that's in the form. So I'm actually just going to pick image here, and we're just going to make this easy and make it my own face. How about that? And so we'll just add these images here, or this image here, and then I'm just going to add one question here on the right-hand side that just says, what would you like to see? And this will be a radio button again, and we'll just call this an image, and we'll call this free text. And then that'll allow us to basically conditionally show these two elements here. So we'll indicate the different display logic for free text. So when someone picks they want free text, we'll show that free text. And when someone picks they want an image, they will see my face. All right, so we'll click Save here as we move on. And then we've got one more section that I want to show. And this is a little bit more of an advanced feature, but as we're talking about all the different components in the template builder, it's important to know. So this is this last button up here called a Manage Template. In short, what a Manage Template does is it basically allows you to hold different specific questions in the templates of themselves so that you can more easily and quickly drag massive amounts of sections to a form and repeatedly use these different templates in many different form templates. So as I drag that onto the canvas here, we're offered with an example of a template that I've already made that's been set to be used as a managed template. And so I'll click Save. And as you can see here, we're automatically populating the template builder here with 3 questions that I've defined. And we can use this managed template in this template, the next template that we make, and the third template that we make after that. And these template questions will remain the same the whole way. So it allows you the ability to scale if you're making many different form templates for many different use cases where the questions might need to be the same across those templates. All right, so there's our form template. We're going to click Save here, and we're going to be done. We'll notice that there's a couple other features that I haven't talked about in here. Primarily would be discoveries, so discovery rules and discovery rule groups. We're going to have a different video that shows you how that works, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we're just going to save this and we're going to close it out. So the last component here is when we save our template, now we want to make it available for people to be able to use. So in this case, the way we might want to accomplish this is, well, the very first thing we must do is we must publish the template. So we'll notice it's still in drafting status. We don't want that. No one will be able to fill it out in that case. So we can go up here to the gear icon and click Publish, and this is going to make everything in that template usable for our users. So, and on the left-hand side, we'll notice that there's some options. It gives us some flexibility around where these things are made available. So if you want this made available on your public site, which is a different video also, I can show you an example of how that works. but you can simply check that box. And now, looks like we have to double check one of these errors before we get going too much further. But if you want to make that available on your public site, that checkbox is how you would accomplish that. And then if you also wanted to make it available on the available on the mobile application, that checkbox there is how you would accomplish that as well. And I'll show you how that works here in 1 second. So let's actually fill this thing out. So we've published it and we've enabled it on our mobile device. And so let's actually pull up what this looks like for a mobile user. So let's see. If I pull up my mobile device here, what we've got, and there's some more instructions on how this works, but Youreka, our mobile device is made, or our mobile application is made available on the iOS and the Google Play stores. So right from there, you can install it onto your mobile onto your mobile device and open up the Youreka app, and immediately you log in with Salesforce and you can start filling out forms. And so this is a really common use case for Youreka, is people actually going out into the field and filling out some of these forms that are prepared for them, and then pushing the data back to Salesforce. A big part of that is the fact that the Youreka mobile app works without internet connectivity. So that's one of the stronger reasons why folks would fill it out on their mobile device, or it's definitely a feature that a lot of our customers value. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to refresh my mobile app here. And the first thing I can do, I can see getting started with the template builder. And as we open up a brand new form, it's gonna ask us which account we want this thing talking to. So if you remember, we created field links based off of that lookup field, and this is where we can inform the form record here which account we want it to be communicating with. So I'm actually just going to type in Burlington Textiles Corp, because that's an example account that we have in the system, and I'm just going to create the form here. And what you'll notice is that all the questions that we set out right here when we created the form template inside of Salesforce are now made available to us. So I'm just going to say that I love it. Again, there's our conditional display logic working for us. And we also have the ability, again, as we switch between the different questions, we're going to show different questions beneath it. So all that's working as we expected. The next section was just showing different pieces of content, so like an image or free text. That works the exact same way. So if I said I want free text, well, there's our free text. If I want an image, well, there's my face. Look at that good-looking guy. So we have the ability to show that the different pieces of information and content inside the form as we're guiding somebody through their process. The next section was using field links. And so in this case, we can see the account name is actually already pre-populated for us, and so is the website. So if I'm a mobile user and I actually want to change this stuff, Burlington Textiles for the demo, that account name will be changed back in the system. The website would also be changed as well. We'll also notice there's our link section, so we can actually see the different contacts for the account are being pre-populated. And I can click into each one and fill out those fields that are also pre-populated. Or if I want to, I can add another contact here too. So we'll say that this is Jane Doe, and we'll fill out the phone number here, and we'll fill out Jane's email address. So now we've been able to update existing contacts. We're adding new contacts. We've updated based on the field link feature, the account name, and we can see our managed template questions where we can just type test, 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 and we're done. And so as you can see from the mobile application, we can click submit right here, and it's going to push all that data back up into Salesforce. So we'll give it a minute. We can see that our template was actually completed, and as I open up the account, we'll already see that the account name itself was completely updated for the demo, and we'll also see that any of the updates that we might have had to contacts in the system have been made. We inserted a new contact record for Jane Doe, and most importantly, the full form that we just filled out is now made available inside of Salesforce to us because it's its own record and it's related to that account. based on that lookup. So now we can see all the different pieces of information that were collected based on that form. The only other way, or I suppose one of the other ways that we can present this to our users, would be to fill it out on the desktop UI, which works just the same way. I just have an example here of a button that we could launch this form from, and I'll put a link in the description as to how we can build these buttons to fill out forms. But what a user can do is they can click on this button and it'll open up the same Youreka template that we created just a moment ago as a brand new form record here. So we'll call this form 2. We'll say that I love it. There's our same conditional display logic, and we'll proceed. There's our account that's being pre-populated for us already, so we'll change it back. Burlington Textile Corp of America. We can see all of our contacts there have been updated. We'll add one more. And we'll call that good. Oops. And we'll call it done. And we click submit, and then the user's taken right back to the account record where they came from, with that fourth contact being updated, with our account name being changed back to what we had it before, as well as the second form that was just submitted for this record. So there's a lot of flexibility that's offered, but hopefully this gave you an example of how we can use Youreka, primarily the template builder, to update existing Salesforce records, to show or hide different pieces of question and content based on the particular use case. From this point on, if you have any other questions on how to get started with the template builder or how to utilize Youreka for your specific use case, you can visit us on the App Exchange or visit our website at youreka.io, and we'll be happy to talk to you about how Youreka might be able to work for your business.